while we have been discussing on the topic of, transferring data from one team to another team, it's often said that what gets lost in translation between sales and CS is just as damaging as a bad product fit. And yet this gap persists across companies of all sizes. Now, in your experience, what is the most common piece of crucial information that sales reps forget to pass along to the post-sales team?
So what sales rep, when they are selling an account and they pass the information on to the onboarding team, the first thing they talk about is how big is the account? How can this account get us more business in the future? Okay, who is the one who is signing the check? What is the check amount, etc. So they are talking about one part of it. What the salespeople sometimes, not always, sometimes. Okay, I have seen people who do that, but then they tend to miss out or forget is the political landscape and the customer baseline matrices, right? So let's say we're talking, the sales will talk about people who are signing the check, but they would not talk about or sometimes miss out the people who are actually using the product. So how are they placed? How are they mapped? Let's say there are 5 people who want to use the product for us. How many of them are detractors? How many of them are promoters, right? So it is important to map them as well and pass on that information to the onboarding and the customer success team so that they can make sure those people are handled separately. But yeah, it is very important to make sure that we identify the political landscape and how each person who is going to be using our product feels about the product, because their feedback is going to go to the one who's signing the check. So maybe the guy signed the check the first time. If the feedback is not good or they are not managed, the next check might not be signed. So it is important to map them very, very closely.
And that's required also to understand who are the active users on the customer side, who are the champions, and who are the decision makers at the end of the day. So, Anurma, there is a nice saying that promises made in a demo room have a long shadow. And sometimes that shadow falls squarely on the onboarding team, trying to deliver on expectations that they weren't even aware. How can sales team better set expectations during the buying cycle so that your onboarding team isn't fighting an uphill battle on day one?
Expectation setting is very important for the good transition of the customer from the sales to the onboarding to the go live thing as well. Even the post go live experience depends a lot on the expectation that was set across when the sales was transferring the account from sales to onboarding. Right? It comes down to tight GTM alignment. Sales needs to sell the reality of the change management and not just the product and which they're selling, right? So while the salespeople are trying to sell the product, right, it is important that they look at what the requirements are. What are the use cases the customer wants to solve? Have a discussion with the pre-sales team or the engineering team to see how much of those, or the product team, to be honest, how many of those use cases can solve right now? How many of those use cases can be solved in the future with some enhancements, right? And how many of those use cases will not be taken up for the next foreseeable future. And this particular expectation needs to be set with the customer before we start to onboarding them. That, hey, Mr. Customer, here are the 10 requirements you have. Of these 10 requirements, 7 requirements we can fulfill it right now, as in we have those feature on the product. We can give it to you. Once you are onboarded, you can get this. And of those 7 features, we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the dates and timelines approximately. Then we can tell them, all right, now of the 3 features which are not there in the product right now, maybe 2 of them we can pick it up in the next quarter or the quarter after that, depending on the product roadmap, etc. And that timeline has to be communicated to the onboarding team and the CS team so that they can then start chasing up with the product team to make sure that the feature is developed time and the customer is aware when the feature is developed. And the last bit, which is the last one feature or the use case which we cannot solve, right? We should tell the customer upfront that this is something which we cannot solve, right? It is, and maybe we'll have it in the future, but right now we don't have it in the roadmap as well. So it is important to set the expectation right, because if the expectations are not set right, the customer experience in the onboarding phase and even post go live will be hampered. The customers will always expect a certain to work in a certain way, and support and customer success will try to convince them it is not it doesn't work the way they're expecting, and then the whole thing goes into a different conversation altogether. So it's important that the moment the customer is being moved from sales to onboarding, before the movement actually, the expectation of what the customer needs and what we can provide for the customer are always set right.
Definitely, I think so. Transparency and
Yes.
clear visibility of the timeline is very important. Even as a customer, I think I would be happy to get that. So we have been discussing about customer support, customer onboarding, customer success. Now, every great outcome in SaaS has a repeatable process behind it. And when it comes to onboarding, winging it simply is not a strategy you can afford. So, everyone, let's talk about the post-sale playbook. What are the first three plays a SaaS company needs to run to ensure a new customer actually adopts the platform?
So yeah, interesting one, Arendra. So uh, every leader or every company has their own playbook, right? What I follow, and what I think is my playbook is might be a little different from others as well. But yes, first is the executive alignment play, right? In uh, you get the buyer and company owner to agree on the top three things they need first, right? So let's say I am buying a product, I need point A, B, and C are my top priority, right? So it is always important to align the leadership on the top priority. That is the first thing. Second thing is the quick win play. Now, in the quick win play, you have to deliver those top three things in the next 15 days time or 20 days time so that the customer gets to experience the product or the wow factor in the product in the first 15 days time. Now, third is a very important one. It is what I call it as a proactive risk play. For example, what this means is we have to keep on monitoring proactively of the platform usage, like platform admin logging into the platform. If yes, how frequently is it using the platform? If the admin logging in or even the logging in, right? If the end user isn't using, only the admin is using that too once a week, that's a red flag. We should go back to the customer and say, hey, you know what? I don't see you're using the platform so frequently. Tell me how can I help you or what help do you need from me? So yes, that will help them, if you keep the customers on pro, and it will give you constant feedback as to what you need to do to make them do better or how can you help them better.
And those are three important players, and that really sets the tone for the entire relationship with the customer.
Yes.
Okay, now let's talk about support. The support teams are often the unsung heroes of retention, and yet they are frequently the most underinvested function in SaaS org. The reactive label is one they rarely deserve, but often get stuck with. Now, in your experience, support, which is often viewed as a reactive ticket taking function, how do you shift a support team's mindset to become a proactive value drivers?
Yep. This is very close to my heart, Ayandra, right? So, for a support team to be moved from a reactive to a proactive nature or proactive kind of tags, it is important to cut the noise, right? So it is always important that the support team is able to work on spending more time solving issues which are of relevance than doing password resets, like I told in the past. So, with automation, we have successfully automated that 70% of our tickets are managed by the AI tool or the automation. Of the 70%, 25% of the tickets are actually closed by AI directly. Now, with this, what has happened is we have driven 18% of efficiency in the team. So, my team is more efficient now, around 18% more efficient. What they are doing now is they are able to spend time to analyze tickets, see which module or which section of the platform needs more attention from the product team, where fixes are more required. They have a weekly call with the product teams and they share their feedback on different modules where the fixes need to happen. And the product team can then, go ahead and fix those problems. So two things. Support is giving you what roadmap for the next product fixes that needs to be done, and product should actually pick those up and start prioritizing to do it. So what will happen in that case is while automation is deflecting your tickets, product enhancements will actually reduce number of tickets. So in this cycle with deflection and reduction, your efficiency of the team will only increase day by day, and number of tickets coming in will actually reduce day by day. That is how you make your support team more proactive and help the organization as well.
I think that's a very good point, and I definitely agree. So the mindset shift is everything. Moving from we solve problems to we actually preventing them. That's not just an operational change, that's a leadership change. And I think what you have described is really the difference. Now let's pivot to customer onboarding. The first 90 days are the most crucial. It can make or break, and most companies either celebrate too early or realize too late that something went wrong during the onboarding phase. We all know that the first 30 to 90 days are critical. How do you measure whether an onboarding process is actually working beyond just looking at time to value?
Yes, Aryan. Time to value is defined as per maybe looking at the first feature which goes live, the first campaign which goes live, etc. But then what is more important is after the onboarding, right? Next 2 or 3 months, how is the customer using the product? Are they using the product correctly or not? How many tickets are being raised? What are the kind of tickets that are being raised? What are the training requirements for the customer? So that is what is more important. So once the customer is onboarded, it is important to track the customer's use of the product. Are they using the product frequently or not, right? Then look at the number of tickets they are logging in. What are the tickets that are being logged? Are those tickets more to do with questions around the product? Then those things should have been answered in the onboarding field itself. Okay. Now the CS function plays a very important role here because onboarding is the handshake between onboarding and the CS team. So the CS team has to make sure that they are monitoring the account day in and day out because the first 90 days is a very important time because they can move out anytime. You won't even know about it. So what is important is the customers, the CS team is able to identify the usage of the product, the kind of issues being logged. CS and support go hand in hand. They can get the information from support team. So that is how it will help them understand the direction in which the customer is going. Your kind of tickets will actually define the training needs for the customer. If the customer needs some retraining, then the customer success team can identify those needs and give those needs to the customer, get them trained, make sure that they are using the platform. So yes, post your onboarding, the next few months are very important because you really need to handhold the customer to make sure that it is moving on to a successful future with the company.
So can I say that it's not just about how fast they get to value; it's about how deeply they are engaging with their.
Correct. Yes, that is
Yeah.
right, Arindam. Spot on.
So we've covered a lot of ground today, from handoffs to playbooks, from team culture to accountability. But before we let you go, Anirban, we always love to leave our listeners with something they can act on, not next quarter, not next month, but tomorrow morning. If you could give one piece of advice to a SaaS founder who's trying to build their first dedicated customer support and success playbook, what would it be?
What I would want the playbook to be is they should not build for the scale that they are today. They should build for the scale that they want to be 2 or 3 years down the line. Right? We should implement our workflows, optimization, and AI strategies on day one and not wait for the wheels to fall off when it's too late for us to do that. Right. And we should treat our post sales life cycle not as a cost center, but as a primary engine for growth in the organization. That's what my advice would be.
So, Anirban, you have been incredibly generous with your insights today, and I know our listeners are going to want to continue this conversation with you, learn from you, and follow your work you're doing in this space. So, where can our listeners who to learn more about you, connect with you, or follow your work?
Yes, I can keep on talking about this topic for the entire day and won't get tired. But yeah, if people want to connect with me, they can connect with me on LinkedIn. Just go to LinkedIn, look for Anirban. A for Anirban is just my profile name. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. I keep posting stuff about customer success, customer support, and the SaaS world. Get hold of me there and leave me a message on LinkedIn. I'll certainly get back to you.